Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. Welcome to episode 7 of The Joy of Coding. Um, let's get into it. I'm really excited. It's going to be a good day. It's a little chilly out, so I've internalized all of this like frigid energy to blast into actually hacking on some code. That was a kind of a fluffy thing to say, but I'm just rolling off the cuff here. So let's get started. Uh, so hopefully you can read this. Here's the agenda for today. If you're watching this on the Air Mozilla page, there is a link in the comments where I've put like a live link to this document here, so you can actually click on the links and follow along. Um, so, general reminder that who knows what's going to happen. Like this is an unplanned, unscripted sort of live hack session. I have a general idea of how today is going to operate, but if suddenly some emergency comes up and I have to deal with something else, that could happen, and we'll just roll with it. So first thing I want to do is kind of acknowledge and apologize about my microphone quality. I've heard that there's like a gating issue on my headset where the microphone is like it sounds kind of like the ocean, waves rolling in on the ocean. Like whenever I stop talking, suddenly static fills the gaps. I'm not sure if that demonstrated it properly, but if it did, well, that's what I'm apologizing for. So I'm looking into solutions for that, but sorry about that in the meantime. We're in the live hacking channel on irc.mozilla.org if you want to talk. If you want to talk with me or other people while I'm doing this. And what we're going to be doing today. So two things. I'm going to start, like I did last time, with a code review. And if you're interested in how I'm going to approach it, I went over my technique at the beginning of episode 5, which I've linked to here. If you really want to see that, you can go watch that right now and then come back. But by then, I might even be done the code review. So maybe watch that afterwards or something. So I'll be reviewing a patch for this bug, which we'll look into in a second. And then over here, I'm going to keep working on making the plugin crash submit user interface like the crash reporter user interface work for multi-process Firefox. That's been my project for the past week or so, and we'll keep diving into there. Uh, Both of these may or may not have to deal with kapows. If you hear me speaking about kapows, people have been asking me about like what's a kapow, what are kapows, what are you talking about? That's this thing, and I might it's kind of a complicated topic, but I have a blog post about it that links to other blog posts and other documentation. So if you're interested in what I'm talking about when I say kapow or cpow, I generally say kapow. See this blog post, and that should clear things up. So that's the 3 minutes burned. So let's get right into it. I'm going to. Good thing I actually. So last week I failed to switch my camera over to the screen, so I'm glad I did that this week. Uh, right, so here's the bug I am going to be reviewing. This is stop sending unsafe kapows after the find bar has been closed in remote browser. So I can actually demonstrate this bug right now. If I open up the browser console and I just start like typing into some area in a bug, like or any text area really. I've had the find bar open at one point in this browser, and you'll notice I'm sending all these unsafe kapow. I'm causing all these unsafe kapow usage warnings for every key press, and that's not good. We want to avoid those when we can, and the reason that we're doing that is because there's this feature called Find as you type. Whoops, didn't mean to open that window. Find as you type, Firefox. That like listens as you type potentially, like if you have it prefed on, it will listen as you type, and then it will actually find the text that you're typing if you're not focused on a text area. And we have to check to see if we're on a text area to do that, and all of that is using reasonably old code. Like I'm pretty sure this stuff was contributed by the Netscape Corporation back when that existed. So it's oldish code that wasn't prepared for multi-process Firefox, and so it is using kapows. And Gijs here has a patch to not use kapows. We're going to be using messages instead which avoids the warning, and that's good. It's good for performance. So let's check out his patch and see how it works. Now I already did a first pass review on on his patch here, and I initially gave it an R minus because I thought it was causing a problem. Like I thought it didn't actually work. Like I was still seeing unsafe kapow usage warnings in my console even with the patch applied, so I just gave it an R minus. But it turns out that I was probably testing it incorrectly because I reapplied it afterwards after he told me like that really shouldn't happen. I went back, I reapplied it, and it turns out I was just wrong. You know, I must have done something wrong. Maybe I didn't update to the right change set after I had applied his patch, and so he was correct. I was wrong. His patch does seem to get rid of the unsafe kapow usage warnings, and I'll confirm that again because I have the I believe I have it. Yeah, this is what I have checked out right now. This is his patch, and we will test it out and make sure that it's actually doing the job. But first, let's see how it works. So it's broken up over a series of files, um, and let's see what he's doing. So he's getting rid of this function that's in browser. So this function, I guess, is not going to be available for anyone else. So the first thing to figure out is, does anyone else call this that will miss it once it's gone? If we remove something, you have to make sure that nobody else is going to try and call it. So let's quickly check DXR. So it's called twice inside browser.js, it's called once inside NS context menu, and it's not called here, something else. It has the same name with an underscore in front of it here. So this doesn't count, but I'm pretty sure this is being called these 3 times. So we have to make sure that Heis has updated it in those 3 places. So this looks like one of those places. Yeah, it looks like he's moved the function over into this browser utils object. And browser utils is something that we have available to us in both the content process and the main process. Like it's copied from on both sides. So common utilities are put there. And I guess if we want this in both, it makes sense to put it in browser utils. So that makes sense to me. And luckily review board is doing its job and is showing me that it's just this part of the line that has changed. So it's nothing else, it's just this part where he adds browser utils before. So these 2 places are updated, that makes sense. And then here's the place in NS context menu. So it looks like Heis has done the right thing there. Assuming that he actually did move this into browser utils, which let's check next. So that would be down here, browser utils, and lo and behold, here it is. Now the other thing I want to check is to make sure that this has the same logic as the one that was moved. So let's quickly see here. It's probably just a straight up copy paste, and that's sometimes dangerous because who knows, like copy paste is easy to kind of have your eyes glaze over and go, oh well, it just got copy pasted, I'm sure it's fine. But you know, sometimes little defects can slip in, so always pay attention. So it returns true if the MIME type is text-based or false otherwise. And he's added this additional note. There's a similar function in browser-based content browser.js. I wonder what function he's referring to. But we'll see. So he checks to see if the MIME type starts with text or ends with XML, or it's of these types: X, JavaScript, JavaScript, JSON, XML, and cached Zool. So let's take a look at the original. That's up here. Text, XML, JavaScript, JavaScript, JSON, XML, cached Zool. All right. And he changed the comment. He changed the comment so that it was referring to browser.js instead of findbar.xml. So let's find out why that is. What did he change in here? So he adds this note. First of all, he's changing the findbar widget so that it implements message listener instead of DOM event listener, and that makes sense because the findbar exists outside of content, so it should be listening to messages and not DOM events, because in multi-process Firefox it will never receive DOM events. Okay. So please keep in sync with toolkit content browser content. That's interesting. Why? Anytime I see a message like "keep in sync," it makes me think. Should speak for myself. It makes me think that like there should be one common place uh, to store certain information as opposed to having two places that you need to keep in sync. Um, so that's something to keep in mind. Maybe I should keep some notes here. Active code reviews. Do I have one for this? I do not. So let me create a new note. Sorry for switching away for a second. Let me just like to keep my note here and the URL. Stick it in there. Okay. So the first thing I want to figure out is there a better, whoops, is there a better place? It's not checkbox. All right, I'll use a checkbox. I sometimes alternate between checkbox and bullets. I think checkboxes are more satisfying though because you get to check them off. Is the note in Findbar about keeping in sync with browser content is a code smell in that there should be one common place for the information that we're supposed to be keeping in sync? So that's a question. Okay. So we will get to that by the end of this. Field name. He's added another underscore before find mode. Why? Because he overrides find mode. The original underscore find mode is being replaced. Huh. Okay, so find mode was this field, this like hidden underscores. So XBL, this is what you're seeing here is what's called XBL, which is like this mishmash of XML and JavaScript that we use for like defining the widgets inside the browser user interface. Think like web components, but like from early 2000s. Web components will eventually kind of be like this, except they won't intermingle the markup in the script, I don't believe. But what he's done here is we have like this pseudo private field because you don't have private fields or private members inside XBL, so an underscore means private. It's not a good idea to be used outside of it. And he's added another underscore, and instead what we have is this underscore find mode being replaced with this property, and a property means you can have functions defined for getting and setting, and we just flat out return find mode, the underscore find mode. I see. So the reason he's doing this is so that he can hook in this update browser with state method. He has that called anytime find mode is updated. Okay. So I have to find out what update browser with state does. And why is it necessary to be called anytime find mode is updated? Next. And he's properly returning a value here. Anytime in XBL you have a property with a setter, you always want to return the value that is being set on it. I don't know why that is, but that's just the way it is. So what he's done here is in this setter, where we are also returning the value, that's good. We get rid of the event listener service. What is this a setter for? Let me get some more context here. This is a setter for the browser field, or sorry, the browser property. So anytime we set the browser, I guess this dot underscore browser would be a previous browser. So this is for like if we've swapped out browsers for some reason. I'm trying to think of when that would be, but I'm certain there's a case where we've swapped out browsers. And in this case, if we have an old browser, then we remove these. Yeah, he sends a disconnect message and he removes message listeners from it, from the browser, the old browser, and then he gets the finder and removes us as the result listener. And then he wires up the new browser. He sets the new browser to be the value, and then he wires up the new one. He sends his findbar connect message. He calls update browser with state again. We have to find out what that is. And then he hooks up these other message listeners and then adds the result listener. So I guess these are the message analogs or the message equivalents of these events that we were hooking up to before. I mean, this isn't wholly different. It's just that instead of listening for system events like keep pressing mouse up, we listen to messages from content about it, which is way, way better. Okay, but it's still what I have to find out. What is this? I know I'll find this out, but always keep notes. What does update browser with state do? Okay, so otherwise this looks fine. Here's another call to update browser with state. It's almost like this must be some kind of flush or invalidation of some kind. We call it anytime we like change something. It's like it's a way of, I guess, updating the browser with the state. So if we switch the browser, then we update something. I guess we must tell the browser something. Okay, enough guessing. We'll find out. So this is so in adding type, this is where he copied it from. So that MIME type is text-based. This is basically what we had inside browser.js before. Slightly different. I think there are more MIME types in the version that he wrote inside browser utils. So this is good if we're centralizing. Please see the similar function. But this comment is probably where he took it from. And I'm guessing that we are using the browser utils version of this now, so that's good. We're centralizing it. In which case, this comment the comment that he copied over no longer makes sense. So I'm going to zip down real quick and see if he uses. Yeah, MIME type is text-based. Does he do? Oh, he doesn't use it in here. He doesn't use it in here because he's going to probably do it in the content script. Yes, that makes sense. Yes. He'll do it down in the content because that's where we have access to this stuff. This is the stuff that's causing the unsafe kapow usage warnings because we well, I guess this wouldn't do it, but this over here is going to get the focused element, and that will be a kapow in the case of an E10S browser, and it's going to do all this stuff with it, it's going to check its types, and this is all fine in single process Firefox, but it is not good with multiprocess. So that to me makes sense. So I'll come back up here, but let's go back down here. So before we were using this regular expression. This regular expression says if it starts with text or it ends with XML. And I believe that's oldish code. We have these handy starts with and ends with on strings now, so that's fine. So I don't think this comment is relevant anymore. I think this comment is relevant. Is it with an A? I don't know. Spell check appears to be broken in E10S in review board. Let's say A. I don't think this comment is relevant anymore. Good. Okay. So back up we go. He got rid of this stuff. Still haven't found out what update browser with state does yet. Then when we on browser key press is an event handler, I guess, for typing keys. So we were preventing the event from occurring. Now we're returning false. So what this function used to return nothing, and now we return false. And I guess I'm trying to remember here. If you return false from an event handler, that in a way kind of cancels the that will cancel the event, I'm pretty sure. Event handler return value. DOM event handlers return value. This binding and the return value. Oh, come on! What? TBD? Oh, you're killing me. False? Return. Event handler return false. So no jQuery. The W3C document object model specification event registration is that handle event has no return value. Event cancellation that cancellation comes from calling out if you want more event. Which should encourage you from using any effect that returning true or false could have in a browser and use event prevent default. I believe older browser and new browser in capability mode will still use the older but never defined. Check out this answer, for example. Convention treat return false like event prevent default. So it sounds like returning false is no longer the thing you want to do? You'd think I would know this. As someone who does this sort of thing for a living, you'd think I'd know. Return false. Let's see what else other people have to say. None of these hits look useful. Alright, well, let's ask Heis. Why did he change from prevent default to return false? I'm curious. Why the change from prevent default to return false? Actually, I can take advantage of review board's markdown support to make this look like code, so it's clear that I'm referring to code. Why the change from prevent default to return false? I guess that sums up my question. Yep. All right. So he might have a very good reason, in which case I will have learned something today. So hoping I figure that out, or he lets me know. Okay, so we've swapped out the DOM event listener for a message listener. This is like this binding no longer implements DOM event listener, it implements message listener. That means handle event is now receive message. They're kind of the same, but not really. Handle event receives an event, receive message receives a message, and the message has some stuff on it that we can inspect. In this case, the message name, which is similar to the event type. Let's see. So we look for find bar key press, and then we pass along. Oh, I know why. Is find bar key press? Is this message synchronous? It is. It is. That's why. Well, okay. So now I know. I can delete this comment. I've learned something today. So he's on browser key press is not. We're not handling an event anymore. So actually, that makes it like we should not be handling an event. We should be like what's being passed to on browser key press is the on browser key press data, and what is that data? A fake event. What is a fake event? It's some object. Ah, I see. So he serializes an event. Huh. Just thinking, is it necessary to like serialize the whole event? What is he using from it? But then in here, he checks out the char code. Dispatch key press event gets past an event. So okay. So I'm doing a lot of thinking in my head. Let me explain what's going on. So on browser key press used to handle a real DOM event. Now it's handling the serialized event that we're passing up from the message manager, and it's a synchronous message, meaning we have to return some value to the content process. And in this case, we're returning true, or I guess we're always returning false. There's never a case in here where we're returning true. So what's on find bar key press? So he's checking to see if false is returned. And whoop, Doing a lot of hopping around, sorry. And when would he ever send true? When would he ever send true? Oh, should we... Here, we return nothing. So that's not good. Should we be returning true here? If not, what? Why? What? Why did you put the comment up there, review board? Oh, sorry. Review board was totally right. I was totally wrong. I was looking at the wrong line. Should we be returning true here? If not, it looks like everything returned from on browser key press is false. So what's the point? Wow, so what's the case where what's the message called? Find bar key press's message sender would receive true as a result. That's my question. Okay. So he dispatches it to... Here's another thing where we've got this like synthetic event here, and then we do stuff with it. Like we dispatch this key press event. And can you do that with this kind of synthetic event? What even is dispatch key press event? I guess you can, because you just take the values and you create a new event. You create a new event and you populate it with all these things. So that will work. That will work. Should we rename this so that it's clear that a event is not actually an NSI DOM event, actually a real DOM event, but a synthetic event? Synthetic serialized event. That's another thing I like to do. This is just I guess these are those soft skills that are useful in code review. Is instead of me saying to Gijs like Gijs, sometimes I butcher his pronunciation. It's Gijs. Instead of saying like, hey Gijs, let's do this, I make it a little more passive because I could be wrong. Maybe he's got a really good reason for calling this a event. I don't know. So instead of telling him to do something, I ask him a question like, should we do it this way? So that the point is raised, but I don't like. It's not what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not being so presumptuous as to think, well, I'm totally right. Because if there's anything that software has taught me is that oftentimes I'm wrong. So just have to keep that in account. Is that the phrase? Keep that in the front of my mind. That's what I like to do. So let's keep moving. We're moving too slowly here. So another message we listen to is find bar mouse up, and then we check some stuff on ourselves. Okay. Here's that magical function. Update browser with state. Function, method, whatever. If we have a browser and the browser has a message manager, then we send an async message to say, hey, we're updating our state. We send what our find mode is. Okay, so it doesn't actually update the browser itself. It updates the content with the state of what the browser is in. So let's go back to where we'd called that function. Up here, I guess if we change a preference, then we'll update the content process with some state. Like we'll say, here's what mode we're in now. Okay, I understand. We have this like these modes that the find bar can be in, and I think Heist is just trying to keep them in sync. So anytime that the find mode changes, we tell the content process, hey, we're in that mode now. Okay, so that makes sense. Write that down. What does update browser with state do? It keeps the content process in sync in terms of what find mode we're in the parent process, and probably other things. What was it? Update browser with state. Where is it? Find mode and I guess this thing. What find mode we're in the parent process, along with was it find as you type, automatic find as you type mode. Sure. Okay. I guess this is a Boolean or something. Okay, so I've raised some questions in here, but otherwise this more or less makes sense, these changes inside the find bar binding. Uh, we're going to have to check out this content script. That's the other half of things. This is what's sending and receiving the messages from the content process. So let's go back to the start. Check this out. That made sense. This made sense. Yeah, this made sense. We need to take care of find as you type watching as long as the find bar isn't initialized. The checks on a event are copied from should fast find. Here's another case where we should probably have a single point where we're doing stuff as opposed to keeping things in sync, but okay. Get focus sync. So this will if we enter this stuff, if we enter this code block, this is what I'd brought up before, and I'd said to Heist, we have a problem here, because I seem to recall us having entered this code block, and this will definitely cause kapow usage, unsafe kapows. And somehow we are prevented from entering this code block, I'm guessing. Handle key press event. But how? How? Oh, this isn't even inside the find bar. This is just inside tab browser. But like this is if the find bar is not initialized and it's not the control key or meta key, and we've not prevented the event from occurring, check the character code of the event, of the key event. If it's the apostrophe or the slash, and we have or we have accessibility type add find, that's when we start doing this stuff. Interesting. That's a thing I want to test. If we get here, if we can possibly get into this. If so, we're still going to be triggering unsafe kapow usage here, I'm pretty sure. So that's a thing to check. So what's this function called? Handle key press event. Is there any way we are going to hit unsafe kapow usage in tab browser.xml? So that's the thing we have to check. So this note that we talked about before, that's actually a bogus comment, so that's fine. It turns out we don't need that line of code anymore, or that comment that was saying to keep things in sync. It's actually exactly saying we don't need to keep things in sync anymore, because find bar is going to be, they're both going to be using the browser utils place. So Gijs and I were on this of a same mind here, where we're putting all that like is text type or whatever, this thing mime type is text based into that browser utils, that single place, and then all things will use that. So that's great. So I think the last bit of the job, if I'm not mistaken, this is the find bar binding again. It's there's browser utils, which we looked at this. There's this should fast find thing. Excuse me. And then there's this change in finder, which I need to understand. But the other major part is the content script. stuff. I need to fully understand this in order to review this. It's 1:34. I was hoping to do more hacking, but this code review is taking longer than expected. I apologize if you were really excited in seeing me hack on the plugin Crash UI. I promise we'll get there. This shouldn't take too much longer. So, I see. I see. That's why we're keeping things in sync, is because half of it's in the content process. Hmm. Type ahead find TAF is type ahead find. Okay. Type ahead find and find as you type. These are the two names of this feature, and we seem to be using both. So like that's a thing. We seem to be using TAF and interchangeably. Let's try to settle on one in any new code. Or is that I'm making an assumption there? I'm assuming that type ahead find and find as you type are the same thing. Oh, yep, it is the same thing. Find as you type was formerly called type ahead find. Uh, okay. So we store the find mode, store automatic FAYT, and then we add message listeners. So when is find bar initted? Right when the content script is loaded. Okay. We add message listeners for find bar, update FAYT, and connect and disconnect. Okay, so anytime update state. Wait, what? When is find bar update states listener set? There's no message listener for this. And is there doesn't seem to be a message handler for update FAYT. This looks like a problem. This looks like a problem. This looks busted. Find bar update FAYT doesn't have a message listener for it. I don't see us adding message listener for this. Should this be find bar update FAYT? That's my guess, is that they're both kind of referring to the same thing. Like these two things are related. I say that because they're kind of in the same order. You've got this thing, then connect, connect, and then disconnect, disconnect. So I have a feeling that this should be update state up here, or this should be update FAYT down here. We just have to decide on a name. So when we connect, what we do is we add a system event listener, key press, mouse up. And when we disconnect, we remove the system event listener. I don't understand why we would do that, because like anytime we're connecting and disconnecting, connect. So we disconnect here, and then we remove. This message will tell the content process, okay, remove your event listeners. This one will just add the same event listeners again. I'm not sure we should, like, why is this necessary? Find bar disconnect. Is that to avoid leaks? Maybe that's to avoid leaks. I'm curious. Well, what did we use before? We were remove system event listener. What were we doing in the old case? Is we I guess he's just kind of mimicking. He's mimicking the old style. The first argument is what we listen to. So, but now we're doing it for the global? I mean, it makes sense if you were like swapping out which browser we were listening to. in the main process, you would remove the system event listener from the browser that you'd selected, and then add one to the new one. But like this is just the same thing. So I'm curious to know if there's any value in this. Is there? Whoop! No, don't yell. Is there any value in removing these system event listeners after they've been added? Do we avoid a leak? That's the only thing I can think of, is that like avoids a leak or something. So we handle events, key press, the mouse up events, all these things that we added event listeners for here, and then we call these functions on key press. So the question is, are we behaving the same way we used to when we listened to these events up in the find bar binding? So that's a question that we should answer. Before, when we listened to the key press, we would call on key press, and that would run this stuff on it. We seem to be doing more in this case before we send the message to the parent. Maybe Heis is being more efficient, like maybe we'll do all the checks before, like we'll do all the checks in the content process, so that we don't have to waste IPC traffic. Also, this new line doesn't be here. Extra new line. Okay, so we do all these checks. Useless keys. Not interested in random key presses most of the time. If our find mode is find normal and we're not automatically finding as you type, and the character code is not TAF links key, and the event character code is not TAF text key, then return. So that's okay. Let's sort through this Boolean logic here. If we're in the find mode, that's find normal. I guess what other modes do we have? Find normal, find type ahead, and find links. Okay. If the find mode is find normal and we're not automatically doing it, automatically finding as you type, and the event character code is not those two characters that we identified that start like type as you find, or find as you type, then we just return. Okay. I think that's all right. I guess. I don't really understand automatic find as you type. This whole feature is not something I use very often, so I'm not too familiar with the nuances of how it works. Check the focused element so we call this should fast find, which is where? Here. Why all these shenanigans, asks Heis. Why not just use the event's target? And I guess he's just copy pasting. We get the focused element for the window, and we check to see if we should fast find. Why not use the event's target? Returns whether the find as you type can be used for the given event in the current content state. And browse utils should fast find is here. Return true if we can / should find as you type for this node / window. Could be a kapow. If element, we check he passes the window so that we can do the comparisons with the HTML input element stuff. So what I really need is to be able to see the old stuff, like just to kind of compare them. So what will I do? What will I do? I will I just kind of wrecked the layout of this page in my zeal. Oh, and I may have just totally screwed myself. Hold up. The No, it was just the content process waiting or being blocked. I'm not screwed. Everything is okay. Thanks to review board, all of my comments are saved. Yep, all my stuff is here. I have a pending review. So the question I want to answer is should fast find the same? As the logic the same? So where's the old logic? Should fast find? It's probably in, here we go. So, oh boy, side-by-side comparison. How are we going to do that? I'll tear this out, and then what's the best way? I think I've tried to do this before, and it ended in misery. Let's see. Can I arrange my windows in such a way that I can do this with minimal pain? I think so. Okay, this this appears to be doing the job. All right. So should fast find. I think he defined it in browser utils JSM. Here it is. So let's check the logic. So we check to make sure that we have an element. That's new. Or no, it isn't. It's down here. This is the stuff that he's extracted and is being used in the caller of this function. Okay. So he's actually changed the signature of should fast find so that we have to pass not an event but instead an element and a window. Where element. So can you please update the doc string with the parameter expected parameters as well? Always say please. Okay, so he skips checking these. I think he does that before we even get here in the new stuff. So that's fine. We go down here. We check to see if it's an instance of an HTML input element, right? Okay, same thing, same thing, same thing. And then he checks those things, and those are all the same. Okay, here we are. Here's where we use MIME type is text-based. That's great. We're reusing this stuff. Win document content type. Okay. So yeah, if the document is not text-based, then why are we even trying to do find? So we get out of there, and then disable find as you type in documents that ask for it to be disabled. Okay. LOC, where's LOC? LOC is originally we were using browser.currentURI. Instead now we're using window.location. Huh. What? What's window gonna be? What's window? Wait, what? Window will not be defined in this scope. So this fallback I don't think makes a whole lot of sense. When do we expect win to be null or undefined? Okay. We check the location to see if it's about blank. Return false. Then we check the scheme. If the location protocol, if it's about, so the protocol, if I remember correctly, does have the colon. Let me just check. I've just opened up my DevTools and kind of wiped out everything there. So if I say like window.location, I get that, and then if I do protocol, yeah, I get the colon. Okay. If the location protocol is that, or location protocol is Chrome, then we document element, disable fast find. If the document element has disable fast find is true, return false. Okay, and the content, like in the e10s case, I don't. I, hmm. So part of the tension here is that Heist needs to make sure that this continues to work in non-e10s mode as well. And so I think that's what this is doing, or I think that should work. Whew. And then, so we must have a case where there is no window, because we're checking it here. If window, try, and we get like the editing session. We query it for the editing session. Okay. And we check to see if the window is editable. If it is editable, then we return false, which is, that's not intuitive, but okay. I didn't expect that. Someone built with, oh, for Composer. That's another thing we have to worry about is like other Zool apps like SeaMonkey or Thunderbird that'll use the find bar. So that's more tension there. So that, I guess that's what we're doing. We're keeping compatibility there. But like browser utils, it's under toolkit, so I guess we can use this stuff. But it's possible that like this might break Thunderbird and SeaMonkey, this change. Okay, so I am pleased with that that sort of swap over of should fast find to here. And then the last thing I want to look at, if assuming yeah, I think I've covered almost everything. It's just this last bit, which is excuse me for poking the microphone. We check to see if we set HTML anchor element as this constant inside finder.jsm to be equal to node owner document or node default view HTML anchor element. What's node in this case? Node is some text node, I guess. Determines whether a range is inside a link. Okay. We check for the owner document. It's possible that the node, because we're node equals child node, so do we iterate? What are we doing? It's possible that the node itself doesn't have the owner document. It might be the document itself somehow, in which case we call default view. Okay, that looks fine. I guess he's just being cautious. I'm not sure if this has ever worked. Is HTML anchor element even defined inside Finder JSM? It might not be. So he might be fixing something that's just been flat out broken, because I'm pretty sure this is not defined in a JSM. Okay. So I'm done my review. I have a number of questions for Kais. I don't think this is a review plus until I get these questions answered, so I'm just going to publish what I've got. But first, thanks Kais. Just a few questions and notes. See below. And then publish. And we're done. Let's hope that this review goes through. Yes, alright. All my issues have been opened. It should be in a comment in Bugzilla. Booyah. So that's hopefully useful for him. And we're done the code review. So now I can go. I never found this out. I had this one thing, but I will do this. He'll answer my questions, and then I'll do a pass where I like actually test the patch again, and that's when I'll test this. So I'll keep this note around, but for now I'm going to say I am done the reviewing portion of today's Joy of Coding. So check. Nope. There, that's what I wanted to do. I like the strike through. There you go. Okay, so moving right along. If you're following along inside the agenda, there's this nice link here to the bug that I'm hacking on. Hopefully that bug is correct. Sometimes I get the bug Link wrong. Yes, this is the right bug. I have notes. These notes are critical to me getting the job done. They're quite extensive for this bug. There are diagrams, and lots and lots and lots of things. And let me tell you, let me kind of swap in what's going on and where I'm at with this particular bug. While I'm doing that, I will update to the tip with what I've got and build. And in the meantime, I'll just explain where I am. But first, a drink. Okay. Where am I? So here's the problem. In the single, if this might be review for some people who were watching this last week, or anytime else I was working on this. So I'll try and go through it quickly. But here's the problem. When we use out-of-process plugins inside single process Firefox, you have a plugin process and you have the main process. And the main process is what's actually showing the, like, it's doing layout, it's doing the DOM, it's processing your JavaScript, etc., and it's the one that's displaying to you the plugin inside your browser window or something. And then the plugin itself is running out of process, and we're doing like all this message passing to make the plugin do its thing. And when the plugin process, if it crashes, that's what this bug's all about, is the case where for some reason the plugin process crashes, then what happens is we get this method called inside, like this all goes away. This just dies. And these little lines here represent, I guess, pipes? I don't fully know how the IPC library works, but I'm pretty sure that it's using just like standard pipes. And when these pipes die, then these objects on the parent side start to destroy themselves. But when they do, we have these like functions that get called whenever they're starting to tear themselves down. And from there we can like analyze why this went down, because there could be multiple reasons why this might be broken down. For example, it's possible that we told it, the plugin process, to go away. Maybe we said, okay, we're done with you now, destroy yourself, in which case it goes down, and that's expected. But there are other cases where the plugin process just flat out crashes, you know. I don't know. Who knows? Flash does something crazy. It dereferences a null pointer, whatever, and it just goes down. And in that case, the pipe will die, and we'll get this message over here saying like there's an abnormal shutdown. And we do our best to get a stack trace from it, and then we tell the web content that might be showing the plugin, well, you just crashed. Update yourself so that you kind of look like, I think I have a picture of it, that you kind of look like this. And then the user is able to type in some comments maybe about what they were doing when it went wrong. Like maybe they have a reproducible crash, and that we can work with that. So sometimes they can give us clues and whether or not they want to include the page's URL, and then they send us the crash report. We analyze it. So that's how it works in single process Firefox, and it works all right. In multi-process Firefox, it gets crazy because we have the main process that is like the one in charge of creating the plugin process, but we also have the content process, which is doing the job of actually showing the browser plugin. And so you have this kind of triangle relationship where you have the main process, you have the content process, and the content process and the main process talk about some things, but not necessarily about plugins. And then you have the content process and the plugin process talking about like plugin-y things. Like if you're watching Homestar Runner and you click on something, like a link inside the Flash element, these two will talk back and forth about it. I don't believe the main process hears about it. These two talk directly. So that if the plugin process dies, well, now you've got two elements, the plugin module Chrome parent and the plugin module content parent, that get that actor destroy method. Like these pipes die, this pipe here, this pipe here, this pipe here, all go away. And then this one and this one have actor destroy called on them. I'm sure this one does as well, but these are the important ones. And it will say abnormal shutdown. Now here's the trick. The main process is the one that actually gets the crash trace, like the stack dump. This is the one that has access to it, and this one does not. And that's why the current, like the crash submitting UI doesn't work for E10S right now, is because this one never hears about the dump, the file that contains the crash report information. This one does, this one doesn't, and so whenever we show that, like we do show that the content has, like the plugin has crashed, but we don't show the interface for submitting a crash report because the content doesn't think we have one because it doesn't know the dump ID. So our solution to this is like this. Plugin process dies. And, well, hold on. Before I talk about the solution, let me talk about the specific wrinkle. There is a wrinkle. There is some non-determinism here because we don't have any guarantee of when actor destroy is going to be called in both of these processes. It's possible that this actor destroy method will be called before this actor destroy method, or vice versa. So we have no idea. It's really up to the operating system in terms of how it wants to dispatch the signal that the pipe has died, and we really can't rely on it being straightforward. We have to account for sorry, straightforward is not the right word. We can't rely on it being deterministic. It's non-deterministic, so this one might have it called on it first, or this one might have it called on it first, and we have to be able to handle both cases. Good, my build is complete. So what we do is when this crashes, two things occur. The content process will eventually hear about it. It's possible that the main process heard about it first, but let's not worry about that just yet. So the content process hears about the crash, and what it will do is it will find every instance of the plugin that just crashed and fire this DOM event, this plugin crash DOM event, for all of them. And that will show the plugin crashed sort of gray box with the sad Lego brick that kind of looks like this. It will show the Lego brick. It won't show the submission crash report submission user interface because it doesn't know whether or not we have a crash report. It's possible we don't. We don't know that yet. So it just shows this part, and then it just kind of hangs out. Then in the main process, actor destroy will get called, and it will find every window. It will just tell every content process. In this case, there's only one of them, but suppose we have many. It will tell every content process, hey, a plugin of this type just died, and we have a crash report. Either we do or we don't. And let's say that we do. It will tell them, yes, we have a crash report, and it will send a message down to all the content processes. And then we've got two states, or two cases. When the message arrives, either the plugin crashed event has already bubbled up, or the message arrives and the content process is servicing this message, but it doesn't yet know that the plugin process has gone down. So what we do is, in that latter case, we have the content process kind of hold on to this information that, yes, there is a crash report for a plugin of this type, and we'll almost certainly hear about a plugin crash DOM event, but because we haven't heard about one yet, let's just wait. Let's just hold on. And we'll just hold on to that information. And then whenever the content process bubbles up those DOM events, we grab that mapping, that stuff that we stashed in here, and then we use it to show the crash report UI or not. In the other case, where the content process has bubbled up the plugin crashed event before this one has figured anything out and sent a message, all of the content that's showing a plugin will show the little sad Lego brick, and then this message will come down and say, like, okay, well, do we have any instances of this plugin, and are they put in the crash state? And in this case, because we bubbled up these plugin crashed events, yes, the plugins will be showing the sad Lego brick thing, and then we can find all of them, and then just immediately, instead of stashing the value, we put them all to saying that, like, they're showing the crash report submit UI or not, in the case that we don't have a crash report submit UI. So that's kind of the sorry, not UI, in the event that we don't have a crash report. So those are the two ways, that's how we kind of resolve this non-determinism. We either hold on to the value if we get the main process message first, the message from the main process first, or we just act right away if the content process heard about the plugin process dying first. That's the approach. So that's kind of where I am. I've actually got it kind of working. Let me demonstrate what I'm talking about. So I have this Flash plugin, and it's this game of Snake where I'm losing again and again. And if I kill, this is my local build. It's an E10S tab. You can tell because of the underline in the tab. And now I have to find the process I have this flash process 53152, and I'm going to call sig abort. I'm going to send it the abort signal, and that will cause it to crash, as well as making it possible to gather a crash report. So I will crash it. So that should put it in the crash state, and now we are showing the UI because we executed that plan where the parent said, yes, we have a crash report. So here's the first wrinkle, is that for some reason I can't type into this field. Like, I am jamming my keys. I can definitely type in other places. Like, it's not just that I can't respond to key events anymore on my computer. It's just this field itself does not seem to respond to key events. I don't know why. That's something I want to investigate, but that's pretty key. And it's either a bug that I need to fix, or maybe that's something we can fix in a follow-up, but that's something I want to investigate to kind of figure that out. I've also done some work where, like, submitting this crash report should work now. So if I say send crash report, it does send it off. So now if I look in about crashes, I have this crash report being sent off. It was properly submitted, so that's good. Now let's try the case where we don't have a crash report. This is something I actually haven't tested yet, so this will be good practice. So here's one way of killing or creating a crashed plugin without a crash report is you just quit the process in your activity. I think you just like kill 9 in Unix or whatever, just force quit, and then we don't have a report. So that's working as well. So that's where we are. How come the crash? So that kind of helped me. All of that explaining was actually useful for me too. That helped me kind of get my head back into the game after that code review. So let's see where I was whenever I was working on this stuff. The question was that I was trying to deal with before I moved on to the code reviews. How come the crash plugins aren't being updated once I submit the report? And I actually fixed that. This was just some silliness on my part. That was an item that I have now addressed. My part, I was referring to some variables with the wrong names, and that was my fault. So that's fixed. We can actually submit reports now. This is good. This is good. And I'm pretty sure it will also work in the non-eTNS case. I should also make sure that that's the case. So let me kill this one. 53177. 53177. Yep. And here I also can't type. That's so weird. And I'm pretty sure that this is like enabled or something. It's not like, can I paste? That's another question. Can I paste? Nope. Nothing. Nothing. That is crazy. I wonder. Oh. Oh, I wonder if this is something I should check to make sure that this is not like busted in release. Maybe, because if so, I mean, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, if people can't comment, that's a pretty big deal. But submitting a crash report in the single process case also works. So that's good. So now let's figure out. Eventually, I want to write a test for that non-determinism stuff. Like, I want to write a test to try, like, to account for the case where the content process hears about the crash first as opposed to the parent process, and then vice versa. I will write a test for that. There's some variable renames I want to do. There's some other things I want to figure out. Here's what I want to do now, though, is find out why I can't type anything. This also, so I'm going to split this out. This also appears to be the case for single process Firefox, which is a bit odd. Is this reproducible in release? So let's quit that. Let's open up a release version of Firefox. My eTNS user. Let's make sure it's up to date. It's 35, so no, it is not up to date. Apply the update. And so we should be up to date now. We are up to date. So the test we're going to perform is in a single process Firefox, if we were to crash this plugin, will we be able to type into the comment box? I sure hope so. Okay, so we've got our Flash thingy running. Now I need to kill the plugin process. Here it is, Firefox plugin content 53206. We'll kill it with Siga board 206. Okay, I can type in here. Great, that's good news. I'm happy about that. So is this a recent regression? Perhaps this is something that, well, maybe it's something I introduced in my patches to fix all of the content, sorry, the E10S case. So let me see what happens whenever I run nightly, just regular nightly, and crash the Flash plugin. So this is a regular nightly. I think it's up to date as of yesterday or today. Yesterday, and it will apply an update. And well, all right, fine. Applying update. So we'll make sure we've got the latest stuff. Okay, and we will run the plugin, and now we will, nope, that's the wrong one. And now we will crash this plugin. So it's nightly that's running it. Nightly's down here, and the process I want to kill is 53224. And it's asking me about my master password, and I'm not going to type that in right now. 53224. Oh, right. Sorry, I have to do this in a non-E10S tab. Whoop. Because this we don't have my bug fix yet, so of course there's no crash report UI. So let me try that again. Let's kill it. It's 53228. Whoop. Aha! I can't type in here. This is totally busted. So somewhere between release and nightly, something has introduced a regression where typing in here does not work. So it's regression hunting time. We're going to figure out where this was introduced and how bad. Like, is this on beta? Is this on Aurora? And then we will file a bug and get that sorted out. I have a feeling this is something I will not be responsible for solving, but we will see. Okay, so close that. Let's check Aurora, also known as Dev Edition. So I have to close this instance. Here's Dev Edition, make sure it's up to date. It's going to go snag a whole bunch of update data. It's humongous because it's for OS X, and so we pack the 32 and the 64-bit versions in the same DMG, or the same like binary that comes down. Once we switch over to like not supporting 32-bit OS X anymore, the size of the download and updating for OS X will basically drop by 50% or something like that. I believe that's the case. Correct me if I'm wrong. So where am I here? There you are. Okay, so let's see if the problem is in Aurora. I've got Firefox Developer Edition with the plugin running here, 53251. We're going to crash that, 251. And I can't type. Developer Edition has the bug. Okay, let's check beta. So shut down Developer Edition. Where's beta? Do I have beta? I don't think I have beta. I better go get beta. Beta.mozilla.org. Download beta. And where are we? If this bug, let me just check the calendar. Release calendar Firefox. Rapid release calendar. So in the worst case scenario, this bug will be on beta, And beta is, when's the next? So on March 30th. March 30th, we will release on the 31st. So we've only got a few days. Shoot, the last beta build's probably been, wait. We're releasing 37. 38 goes to beta. We release 38 here. So let me run. So 37, yeah, 37 goes to release in like a couple of days. I really, really hope this bug is not in 37. If it is, I better start pinging people in IRC and like sounding the horn, because that's that's pretty bad news. Okay, so we've got our plugin here, and we will start the plugin process. Firefox plugin content, it's 53286. So, moment of truth. Are you going to see me reveal another like late breaking regression? Tune in right now, because we're about to find out. Kill Sigabort, and let's see if we can type. We can't. Oh, jeez, we have a problem. Okay, so it's time to file a bug. Um, Shoot, this is bad news. Um, Core plugins, or where would I put this? Core plugins, I'll put it in now. And I better start like alerting people. 37 branch cannot type into comment area of plugin crash UI. Let me, before I freak everybody out, let me make sure I can't reproduce this in a brand new profile. So let me create a brand new profile. Here's beta. Let's create a brand new profile. We're going to call this plugin crash test. And we'll start Firefox. And now I will go to that page. Where was it? Smedberg, Flash Solo. We are running this Flash. 53299. Yeah, in a fresh profile, I cannot type into the text input. That's bad. That's bad. Comment area plugin crash UI. And so it's on the 37 branch. I'm on OS X. I don't know if it affects other platforms. It's possible, but I've only tested on OS X. Steps to reproduce. In a good bug report, you put in the names of the the steps that you're using, so that people can test this and verify that it's actually fixed when it does get fixed. Okay. In a new profile, in Firefox 37 or later, visit, and then here, if showing the click to play notification, activate the plugin so that you see the Snake Game applet, Flash applet loaded. Make note of plugin, what is it called whenever it runs? The process something. What's that process called? The Firefox plugin content. Know of the process ID of the Firefox plugin content process that's holding Flash, that's running Flash. Open up a terminal and type kill sig abort, and then process number to crash Flash. In the crash report UI, attempt to type into the, what's the text area look like? So it's 53303. The add a comment. Add a comment. Text area. Expected results. I should be able to add comments to my crash report. Actual results. It doesn't look like the the text area does not appear to respond to my text input. I cannot type or paste any text. I'm going to CC some people that I think know about this stuff. That's Georg Fritscher, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. B. Smedberg probably cares about this. And I'm also going to alert who's running the beta right now. I'm gonna say, I should probably ask in release management. So I'm going to pull over. Okay, first I'm going to change my nickname so that people know I'm live hacking. Nick M. Connolly, live hacking. And then I'm going to ask, who will I ask? Lawrence, do you know who is managing the 37 beta release? Streaming this conversation live, by the way. Hope that's cool. If not, let me know. So, while we're waiting for that information, we can CC people after we've submitted this, but we should get to submitting this. We should also say which versions of Firefox are affected. I'm going to say request tracking on 37. All right, you know what? I'm not going to do that just yet. I'll do that in a follow-up addition to this. Mendel says, I am. Okay, so Lawrence is the one who is in charge of this release. L. Mandel. Okay. So I am submitting this. Just discover. Not sure how. It's true. I don't know how serious this is, but it's not great if we can't get additional information about a crash. So I'm requesting tracking across 37, 38, and 39. 37 is affected. 38 is also affected. 39 is affected. And then tracking requested. We're not. Why am I? For any plugin crashes where we generate a crash report, users will not be able to add additional commentary to their crashes. Not sure how important that is, but we should probably, at the very least, add a release note so that users are not confused when they can't type into the input. Thanks for flagging. I'll review with the stability team. Great. So, done my job here. So this is kind of out of my hands now. I've CC'd the people I think care. I've flagged it for tracking, so we don't lose track of it across the releases. I've put in my steps to reproduce. I've requested tracking. I guess what I could do is I could attempt to reproduce it on like Linux and Windows, but I'm not gonna. If you're watching this video and you're either watching it live or maybe later on in the evening or something, and you're interested in testing this out, maybe go to this bug, and try running these steps to reproduce. And if you're on Windows or on Linux, I'm very interested in, like, maybe you can update this bug with a comment saying, yes, this thing crashes on, or this bug is reproducible on Linux as well, or it's reproducible on Windows as well. In the Windows case, you can't use kill sig abort. You'll have to use what is it? Crash Firefox. There's this application that B. Smedberg wrote, Crash Firefox intentionally. I think there's a way. There's like, you don't have to build it. Where is it? There must be a. Yeah, here's a link. I'll put it in my agenda if you're interested in trying this out. Nope. Yeah, here's the agenda. So if you go here in the agenda, you can download this executable for crashing a particular process on Windows in such a way that would create a crash report, and the instructions for using it are here. Instructions. And so you just put in the process name or the PID. Windows has like the task manager, which will allow you to find the plugin process. So yeah, because that changes everything. If this is only reproducible on OS X, that's way different than if it's reproducible on Windows and Linux, or also Windows, because Windows is by far our hugest population, and so if it doesn't affect Windows, that kind of brings the severity down quite a bit. I mean, it's still serious, and we want to take care of it, but if it's not Windows, that kind of like, okay, we can cool off just a little bit. And it's not great, but it's better than if it's broken across everything. So that'd be useful. If you're watching this and you want to help out, give reproducing this on Windows or Linux a shot, because I think that'd be really useful. So I'm going to put a link to this bug as well into here. Boop. Boop. So and I should make note of it in my bug notes for the plugin stuff, for my own notes. Okay, so holy smokes, this appears to be reproducible up to beta. I should mention I cannot reproduce this on release, by the way. It appears to be introduced in 37. Actually, I don't know if that's useful for me to say, because we already release is 36 and I would have said affected, so I'm not going to mention that bit. I don't need to include that. This appears to be reproducible up to beta and is therefore maybe a big deal. I've filed this bug, and I will link to the bug here. Whoop. So I don't exactly know why, but I filed it, and probably this will get attention from someone else. Maybe I'll bisect this after the stream. Bisecting is a little bit boring, but basically it's like, if you don't know what bisecting is, it's actually pretty useful, where we've got snapshots of Nightly going back to like the beginning of Firefox. And what I can do is I can say, okay, I would like you to give me a Nightly from 6 months ago, and let's see if that one has the bug. And if it doesn't, well, then we know that between now and 6 months ago, the bug was introduced. And we can keep like having that time interval again and again and again. And it's like, what's the term? It's like a logarithmic, it's log based too. So you don't have to do too many steps before you can determine when the like the nightly snapshot where the bug was introduced. And then once you have that, you have a range of changes that went into that build that you can similarly bisect. Although in that case, it's a little more it's like a little more annoying, because you actually have to like bisect the change sets and build each time, and that can take some time, but then you can like narrow down right to the change set that is responsible. Like this patch or this bug that someone wrote is responsible for the problem. And that's pretty useful. It's way better than like just kind of stabbing around trying to figure out where this problem came from. I mean, there are lots of ways of determining how a bug works. If it's a regression, bisecting is often a great approach. It's a little time consuming, a little monotonous, but it helps narrow things down, assuming that you don't have some wacky scenario that's difficult to reproduce. Other times, inspection will allow you to do it, or using GDB or your debugger or whatnot will help you figure out what's going on. Okay, so it's 2:30. I'm switching back to my camera. Hello, everyone. That was pretty intense. We did some code review today, and then I talked through kind of the approach for the plugin crash UI stuff. I demonstrated how it worked. I was hoping we'd get to work on it a bit, but then I kind of got distracted by this bug where you can't type into the text area, and then I showed you how I filed a bug. And I think that's where I'm going to cap it today. Thanks so much for watching. Again, if you have any feedback, whoops, let me bring up my screen again. If you have any feedback about what I'm doing with these live streams, maybe there's certain things you want to see more of, see less of, complaints, suggestions, compliments. If you want to send me a bouquet of flowers, anything like that, here's where you can send me feedback. There's my Twitter handle. You can ping me on IRC. Here's my blog if you want to read up on stuff I've written. And yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna cap it. So thanks so much for watching. I do this every week, Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. GMT. I do this every week. Tell your friends. If this is something that interests you, I'll be doing it every week, and I'm doing this for you. So let me know what you want to see more of, and I'll try and deliver. Thank you so much for watching, and keep rocking the free web, as Potch would say, and take care. Bye.